Failure is one of life's most misunderstood experiences. Most people think of it as the end, as proof that they are not capable, or as a signal that they should stop trying. But the truth is this: failure is not final unless you allow it to be. Failure is simply feedback, a correction from life itself, pointing you toward growth. The problem is not failure itself. The problem is our response to it. Too many people treat failure like a label, something that defines who they are. They say, "I failed, therefore I am a failure." That single thought has kept more people stuck than the failure itself. The real difference between those who grow and those who remain trapped is perspective. Failure can either become your greatest enemy or your greatest teacher. Think of it this way: every area of life where growth matters most will eventually confront you with failure. In business, you might lose money, lose an opportunity, or lose your job. In relationships, you might experience betrayal or heartbreak. In personal development, you might set goals you don't reach. None of this is unusual. It is the natural process of growth. The question isn't whether failure will come, it's what you will do with it when it arrives. Here is what failure does if you let it. It clarifies. It strengthens. And it humbles. It clarifies your values by showing you what truly matters. Many times we pursue goals that are not even our own. We chase promotions, recognition, or approval, and when failure strikes, it forces us to ask whether that pursuit was ever worth it. Failure strengthens you by demanding resilience. Success without setbacks is fragile, but success built on recovery and persistence is durable. And failure humbles you, reminding you that growth is never complete and that there is always more to learn. The truth is, failure is not the opposite of success. It is a component of success. Every successful person you admire has walked through the doorway of failure many times. What separates them from the rest is that they saw failure not as a wall, but as a signal. Adjust, improve, try again. So here is the lesson: don't run from failure. Don't hide it or pretend it didn't happen. Acknowledge it, study it, and let it instruct you. Regret does not come from failing. Regret comes from refusing to learn when failure offers you the chance. If you take the lesson, you have not truly failed, you have advanced. That is the secret strength hidden in failure. It refines you. It reveals you, and in the end, it prepares you for a kind of success that is deeper and more enduring than any single achievement. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I used to believe failure was the final chapter, the story's unhappy ending. To my younger self, it was a verdict. If I failed, it meant I was broken, incompetent, less than. I wore the fear of failure like an invisible backpack, heavy and always present, driving me to work harder, run faster, push myself beyond what was reasonable. I thought if I could just stay perfect, if I never stumbled, I could avoid that terrible feeling of shame. I grew up in a world that celebrated winners. The trophies on the shelf, the straight A report cards, the college acceptance letters. That's what we were taught to chase. The message was clear, etched into the very fabric of my small town upbringing. Success is a straight line, and failure is a detour you can't afford to take. My father was a hard-working man, a mechanic who built his business from the ground up. He taught me the value of a solid day's work and the pride of a job done right. But he also carried his own regrets, his own moments of what he considered failure, and I watched how they weighed on him. He'd often say, "Son, you gotta get it right the first time. There's no second chance out there." I took that to heart. Maybe too much so. I built my life on the belief that a single misstep could derail everything. It was a pressure cooker, and I lived with the lid clamped down tight. But life has a funny way of giving you exactly what you need, especially when it's the last thing you want. And failure, big, messy, humiliating failure, was exactly what I needed. It was the shock to the system that finally forced me to look at the world and myself in a different way. It wasn't just a career setback. It was a soul-shaking earthquake that brought the whole fragile structure of my life tumbling down. Let me take you back to my mid-30s. To a time when I was deep in a race I didn't even know I was losing. By then, I was deep in the race of achievement. You know the one, climbing the corporate ladder, collecting titles like trading cards, living by the mantra, work now, live later. I believed the equation was simple. The harder I worked, the more I would succeed, and the happier I would be. I saw others around me doing the same thing. The guy in the next cubicle, the one who just bought a new boat, or the woman who was always flying off to exotic locations for conferences. They were the benchmarks. The people who had it all. So I worked. Oh, did I work? Late nights, early mornings, business trips stacked so close together that airports started to feel more like home than my own living room. I remember one month where I spent 3 weeks out of 4 on the road. My wife, bless her, would leave notes on the kitchen counter. Just a few words to let me know she was thinking of me. Sometimes I'd get home so late, I'd just fall into bed, exhausted, without even having the energy to call her and say goodnight. My kids would be asleep, and I'd just catch a glimpse of them for a few minutes before the alarm went off again. I thought it was all worth it because I had my eye on a prize, a promotion that would finally validate all the sacrifice. It was the ultimate validation, the proof that the endless hours, the missed birthdays, the silent dinners were all part of a master plan leading to a glorious destination. When that promotion opened up, I was ready. I had been preparing for it for years. A quiet, methodical campaign of excellence. I was the go-to guy for tough projects, the one who always stayed late, the one who took the lead on every new initiative. I was a company man, through and through. I could see it, taste it, almost feel the congratulatory handshake from my boss. I had done everything right, followed every rule. In my mind, the promotion wasn't just likely, it was inevitable. It was my destiny. The culmination of everything I'd been working for since the day I first walked through those office doors. And then the announcement came. The email landed in my inbox with a quiet little chime. I opened it, my heart pounding with a strange mix of anticipation and certainty. It wasn't me. Worse, it went to someone I had mentored, someone I had personally helped prepare for leadership. A younger guy, full of fire and new ideas. I remember feeling the blood drain from my face as I read his name. A wave of disbelief washed over me, followed by a burning, gut-wrenching pain. I shook his hand, smiled in front of the team, said all the right words. I told him he deserved it, and in a way, I believed it, but the words tasted like ash in my mouth. And then I went home, closed the door, and sat in the dark for hours. What I felt that night was like grief. It wasn't just disappointment about the job. It was like the entire story of who I thought I was had been ripped away. The narrative I had built my life on, the one about hard work leading to guaranteed success, was a lie. I had told myself for years that if I worked hard enough, I would win. And suddenly, I had worked hard, harder than I thought possible, and I had lost. It was a profound and shattering betrayal, not by my company, but by the very rules I thought life was governed by. My old life, my old story, was gone, and for weeks, I unraveled. Then came a whisper in the dark, a question on a night that changed everything. I went through all the stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression. I even tried to distract myself by working more, which was ironic and a little tragic. I'd come home and just keep staring at my laptop, trying to find some new project to bury myself in, hoping the noise of my work could drown out the silence in my soul. But no matter what I did, the truth sat there like a heavy stone. My old life, my old story, was gone. It was like trying to put a puzzle back together after someone had thrown half the pieces away. I became a different person during those weeks. I was short with my wife, distant with my kids. The joy had been sucked right out of me. I would sit at the dinner table, physically present but a million miles away, replaying the last few years in my head, searching for the moment where it all went wrong. I tried to find a flaw in my plan, a mistake I had made. But there was no mistake. I had done everything right. And still, I had failed. And that was the most terrifying realization of all. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday. Late. The house was silent. Everyone asleep. I was sitting alone in the living room with a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid swirling in my hand, staring at my reflection in the dark window. I didn't recognize the man staring back at me. He looked tired, defeated, and profoundly lost. In that moment of complete and utter stillness, a strange thought bubbled up from the depths of my despair. It wasn't a loud thought, it was a whisper. A question I had never dared to ask before. What if this isn't a dead end? What if this is a beginning? It was a small question, almost whispered, but it cracked something open in me. It was like a single ray of sunlight cutting through a thick, dark cloud. For the first time, I realized that maybe this failure wasn't happening to me. Maybe it was happening for me. The idea was so simple, so profound, it almost took my breath away. All my life, I had seen failure as an obstacle, a wall to be climbed or a trap to be avoided. But what if it was a signpost, pointing me in a different direction? That shift in perspective changed everything. The heavy stone in my gut didn't disappear, but it began to feel less like a weight and more like a foundation. Over the next few months, I began to pull my life apart piece by piece. I didn't just look at my career, I looked at everything. I asked hard questions. Why was I chasing this particular promotion? Was it really what I wanted? Or was it what I thought I was supposed to want? What was I hoping it would give me? Money, status, meaning? And if it was meaning I wanted, why did I believe I had to earn it through exhaustion? I realized that most of my goals weren't truly mine. They were hand-me-down dreams from society, from my parents, from a younger version of myself who thought success was about corner offices and fancy titles. I was living a life that was a good fit for someone else, but not for me. I realized I didn't even like my job anymore. The work had become a chore, a means to an end. The competition, the endless meetings, the political maneuvering, it had all drained the joy out of what had once been a rewarding career. I was just going through the motions, a ghost in my own life. So I did something radical. I quit. I left the company entirely. It was the scariest decision I had ever made. I remember the look on my boss's face, a mix of surprise and confusion. "You're at the top of your game," he said. "Why throw it all away?" But I knew I wasn't at the top of my game. I was at the bottom of my soul. I took 6 months off, no emails, no meetings, no endless to-do lists, just me, my thoughts, and a blank slate. Those 6 months were hard. You'd think time off would be relaxing. But when you've spent decades tying your worth to productivity, sitting still feels unbearable. I wrestled with guilt, with the feeling that I was being lazy, with the fear that I would never find my way back. I spent long days just staring out the window, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake, if I was throwing my life away. But slowly, the noise in my head quieted, and I started to notice things I'd been too busy to see. The way the light changed in the late afternoon, the sound of my kids' laughter drifting through the house, the way a long conversation with a friend could make me feel alive. I started reading books for pleasure again, not for professional development. I picked up a guitar I hadn't touched in a decade. I began to see the world not as a series of obstacles to overcome, but as a vast, rich tapestry of experiences. I started mentoring young professionals, not because it was part of a job description, but because it brought me joy. I discovered that what I loved most wasn't winning promotions, it was helping others grow. I found a deep satisfaction in seeing the light bulb go on for someone I was helping, in watching them find their own path. I learned that my kids didn't care about my job title. They just wanted me at the dinner table. They wanted me to read them a story, to help them with their homework, to be present. I learned that life isn't a ladder to climb. It's a garden to tend, full of seasons, full of growth, full of chances to start over. It's about planting seeds of kindness and connection and watching them bloom. And here's the most important thing. Failure didn't break me. It built me. Asterisk. It took a sledgehammer to the fragile life I had built on a foundation of shoulds and musts. It stripped away the illusions I had been clinging to and forced me to rebuild my life on a foundation that actually mattered. It taught me that my worth isn't measured by achievements but by presence, by connection, by the way I show up for the people I love and the work that lights me up. It taught me that it's okay to be lost, because it's only when you're truly lost that you can find a new, better way home. Even now, years later, I think about that moment often. The night I didn't get the job. I can honestly say I am grateful it happened. If I had been promoted, I would have stayed on a path that was slowly draining the life out of me. A path that was leading me further and further away from myself. I would have had the corner office, the title, the fancy salary, but I would have lost my soul. Losing gave me back my freedom. It was the greatest gift I never knew I needed. So if you failed, if you've been rejected, fired, dumped, or disappointed, I want you to hear me clearly. This is not the end. This is not the end of the road, the final scene, the last word. It might be the start of the truest part of your life. Failure hurts. Yes, it will take the wind out of you. It will make you question everything you thought you knew. But inside that pain is direction. Inside that ending is a new beginning. It is the beginning of a life built on your own terms, not on the expectations of others. My biggest regret taught me that we are not defined by our wins. And we are not doomed by our losses. We are defined by what we do next, by the choice to stand up, dust off, and take another step, even if it's a different direction than we planned. It is in the quiet courage of that next step that our true character is revealed. So don't just survive failure. Let it shape you. Let it teach you. Let it strip away what doesn't belong so that what remains is something stronger, wiser, and more true. Let it be the fire that forges you into a new, more resilient version of yourself. And when you rise, because you will, you'll rise as someone who knows what really matters. You'll rise as someone who understands that life isn't about avoiding the falls, but about finding the strength to get back up. That, my friend, is the secret strength hidden in failure. And once you find it, no one can ever take it from you.